beyond the skies. You and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Elizabeth McDonald, and I am a career readiness coach for Mastercard Foundation and Baobab. So happy to have you all here. We have a really exciting program for you. As you come in, because we're going to be talking about first-time managers, I'd like you to let us know where you're joining us from, and then let us know if you are a current scholar or an alum. And if you're working, let us know what role you are working in. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Let me pull this one up. Hold on. So today we're going to be talking about how to navigate being a first-time manager. Many of you are going to be finding yourselves in this role. We have two guest panelists, so excited to have us. We have Margaret Odero and, sorry, this is on automatic. There we go. And Michelle Goth. We're going to first do a welcome. We're going to talk about trends for first-time managers, and then we're going to jump right into our interview. So again, my name is Elizabeth McDonald. I think you guys all know me. I'm going to skip over it. If we can go to Margaret Odero, she's going to be joining us. She's an alum from Ashesi University and CMU Africa. She's a team lead. Oh my God, sorry. This is on automatic. There we go. Team lead data scientist with a background in electrical and computer engineering. She works at the intersection of data and power systems. Currently, she works at Inline Inc. to analyze the power quality and reliability of electricity grids and produce insights that inform grid improvement efforts. Our second guest panelist is Michelle Goth. So happy to have her with us. She's an executive coach and leadership consultant with over 25 years experience. Through her company, ALR Coaching, she helps global teams strengthen communication, emotional intelligence, and leadership presence, supporting emerging leaders as they grow with confidence across cultures and contexts. So group rules, please mute yourself if you're not speaking. If you have questions, put them in chat. We're going to have a very active chat forum today. We also have the Q&A part, I think, that people will be able to put at the end. So after our interview and our presentation, there'll be an opportunity for Q&A. So we really look forward to hearing what your questions are. I'd like to start off very, very briefly and provide a little bit of context for trends of first-time managers. They find that 60 to 70% of managers in technical industries are promoted or hired from technical positions. They find that these managers, 66% were technical experts first, and most of them don't receive any formal training when stepping into a management role. And that's the theme that we're looking at today of what what it's like being a first-time manager. I'm going to stop my screen share, and we're going to jump in, and we're going to hold on. We're going to jump in for our interview. So our alumna, Margaret, was recently promoted to a team lead. Today, we're very, very honored that she's going to share a bit about how this opportunity came about and what her initial reaction was. Michelle will lead the interview to help us learn more about Margaret as she shares her insights about surrendering her experience and her new perspectives on leading a team. So let me hand it over. Angela, has Margaret joined us?
I have.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Welcome, welcome, Margaret. I'm going to hand the floor over to you and Michelle. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. All right. Hello, Margaret. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Michelle?
Awesome. I am honored to get to interview you today and have an opportunity to have you share your insights with the others. One of the things that I find incredibly exciting about the work that I get to do is I get to work with young leaders like you across the globe and across a variety of companies, everything from software to hospitality to biotech. And almost all of them have the same challenges that you're going to bring to us today. So I love the fact that you used the resources wisely within this organization and you raised your hand and said, is this normal? Because I have news for you. It's kind of normal, but you're navigating it in such a beautiful way that Angela and Elizabeth stepped forward and said, we'd really like to hear your story. So with that said, I'd love for you to share with me a little bit today about how this promotion came about and some of the initial thoughts that you had.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. Background, I work in a remote company, a startup, and I work from Kenya, but the company is based in California. And so the team, or like people in the team, are spaced globally. People are in different countries. And so I work in the data science team. And what happened sometime last year, is that the person who was leading the data science team was wanting to transition into a new job while stepping down from her role as the team lead, but being part-time individual contributor. So more like almost like a demotion of sorts. And when that happened, the CEO approached me to lead the team in her stead. And therefore, this was more like an unexpected opportunity rather than an opportunity that I applied for. When I got that, when I was approached to lead the team, of course, I had a mixture of both excitement and a bit of fear, to be honest, because of course that means this is a nod to the type of employee or the type of worker that I am, or the value that I bring to the company, because there are other team members that could have also been approached for this leadership role, but I was approached, which says something about my work style or my value that I bring, the value that I bring to the company as a whole. But of course, it was going to be something that was also a bit scary, given now like that it was more responsibility to deal with. Yes.
Awesome. So I love that you viewed this as a surprise, but not as a surprise. Because of your work ethic, because of your work style, you rose to the top as being one of the team members who could step up and take the lead. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Yes, I mean, it was, just to say something a bit about that, it was, let me say, not something I was thinking. It was unexpected, because I thought maybe now that the team was leaderless, it was going to be a role that was going to be advertised and people would then apply for. But the approach for the CEO to then approach me directly and say that we'd like you to lead the team, what do you think about that, was just the unexpected part.
it's beautiful. So when you think about that, what felt most exciting about getting to lead this team?
For me, it was, of course, one, it said something about my work, the value that I bring. It said that I have there's so much value that I bring to the company or to the business. But the other thing too was like, this was for me an opportunity for me to grow as someone in my career, because because initially I was just an individual contributor, writing code, contributing features to the data team. But now this role now involves making decisions at the team level, but also making decisions on behalf of the company as a whole when it comes to interacting with external potential partners or partners when they're talking about data products that they would like to have or they'd like to see. this is something that for me was exciting because it says, career growth. You're going to be making decisions. You're going to be leading people in a team. You're going to also be representing the company when it comes to external partners. I think those were the most exciting parts of it. Yeah.
And you mentioned the word fear earlier. What was the challenge that you thought, oh my goodness, am I ready for this? What was the most challenging part of this thought of stepping into this role?
So I'm going to say, interestingly, those same things. Wow. So the most challenging part, but also, so those same things, again, making decisions. Am I going to be making the right decisions? Am I going to be able to represent the company and, make business for the company? Am I going to be able to lead this team and keep them motivated and keep the vision alive, direct them to a vision? But I think there's the one thing, again, that was a bit challenging was the fact that my former manager was now becoming an individual contributor while I was becoming the manager. So that means I was now going to lead my former manager. So that means if you're leading a team, that means sometimes you probably follow up with them, you have one-on-ones with them, have meetings with them, maybe drive the vision for the team, which is quite an awkward position to be in, because just yesterday, I was coming to you with questions, which, I mean, of course, when it comes to discussions and trying to make decisions, it's always a discussion. But at the end of the day, I am now going to be the one with the final say, final decision. And the most awkward part for me was having to follow up with my former manager for some tasks. Yeah.
That is pretty awkward. So did you have any strategies coming out of this, or were you prepared?
I don't think anything could have prepared me for having my manager in my team. And to be honest, I don't feel like I can sit here and say that I had strategies to deal with the situation. I just felt like, what do I do? And as I was thinking now, like now that I think about it, I remembered this one task that I followed up with and got quite a slow response to and decided to do it myself at the end. And, I don't know if that's like the type of thing I'll tell people to do, but this is what I ended up doing. And I don't know if it's a strategy. I think it's probably not the best strategy, but it's just one of those things where I know that I'm the one who, at this point, I'm responsible for the team. I'm the one reporting to, to higher management or higher leadership about what's going on in the team. And when you report to higher management as a team leader, you don't report that, oh, person X did this, person X did this. You say the data team achieved this or failed to achieve this. So if somebody didn't do a task, it's going to be the data team, not the person.
Not
And
the
so
single
for me,
individual.
yeah. So in that one scenario, I found myself just saying, okay, maybe I could just take on this task and do it because it would be faster that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my questions for you was really around that. How do you have to set some boundaries and have some expectations. So not just with her, but these were your former teammates as well.
Yeah.
How has that transition been for you to start to think about how do you set some of the boundaries, because you're all required to work together to get the work done. Yet ultimately, as the leader on the team, you are ultimately responsible for ensuring it's all accomplished, which is why you felt compelled to do her work.
Yeah.
Okay, which didn't feel right, but necessary. And I agree with you, that's not the best strategy. But as a leader for many years, sometimes you have to pick up the ball to ensure that the team succeeds. So now thinking about that, how can you navigate some of the boundaries or expectations, not just with her, but with other team members?
Yeah. The one thing that I've found to somewhat work is, so usually we have weekly check-ins, so 2 weekly check-ins per week. And so every time we are in that weekly check-in, there's a growing document of just tasks and updates and where people have reached and what are the challenges people are facing and what are people going to do next after their meeting. And so with that, because everyone knows that's the reference document, if we sit here today and say, Michelle, today you're supposed to do X, Y, Z, and you said, oh, okay, those are things that you're gonna do. And then so when we come back the next time, that will be our reference point. And so for me, I found that that's easier, or like a thing that works better than if we didn't. So imagine if we didn't have that document and I came,
Right.
so I had, let's say I had my notebook and I was writing the task and taking notes, and I come back and say, Michelle, the last time we said you should do this, have you done it? I think having that shared document makes it more like a shared, everyone knows it's a shared responsibility. Everyone knows that's where we're going to go to. So it's not more about me vindicating you, but each of us taking responsibility. But the other thing I also realized when it comes to, let's say, giving feedback. So once maybe a task has been done and a review is, so then I'm doing a review is, so if I frame most of my feedback as, can we change this, or can we approach this in this different way, instead of saying, Michelle, can you do this? So the difference is in the you and in the we. So while even though I'm saying, Michelle, I think we could do this, this, and this, you are still the one gonna do it. But the use, I feel, of the word we and let's and us I've found has been, it makes it more like you're not exerting yourself on people, or you're not micromanaging, but you are kind of making this like as a collective work, even though everyone knows you will be the one doing
Yeah.
the
Ultimately,
task.
I'm
Yeah.
responsible because it's my task as a team
Yeah.
member. You
Yeah.
mentioned the most important strategy, and I want to just congratulate you for bringing that out right away. Document, 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 document. And it's the
Yeah.
hardest thing for new managers to do because they feel that there's a little bit of, should I be writing this down? Should I be putting this? How do I track this? How do I ensure accountability? And if there's not a training program in place or a leadership program in place that teaches you that, Margaret, that's a phenomenal strategy that you're pulling out of the gate right away. You've been in this role about 7 months, right?
Yes, 7 months.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
within that document process, that are you documenting in a way that your team can see the notes? Is there a shared document?
Yes, so it's a shared document that the team, so all of us actually write notes collectively there each time we're
Mhm.
having. So it's not just me, and it feels like we all agreed this is gonna be the task that person X is doing, and so when you come back, it's automatic instead of it's coming from me. It's
Yep.
coming from the shared document.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so the shared document becomes the living document, and context can be addressed, things can be changed, things can be figured out. So when you're thinking about that idea of really ensuring understanding. Okay, I want to transition a little bit into this former manager. How can you help her feel that it's a privilege for her to contribute? She's still part of the team. You
Mhm.
want her expertise and knowledge there, yet she might be taking a little bit of an advantage. How can you help her see that her expertise is necessary and you're excited to have her as one of your teammates?
Yeah, good question. I think obviously with her having been in this position before and her having a lot of, knowledge of working of the company and of the team itself, I think, so usually it's like when it comes to making decisions, I try to say, okay, so let's say the person is named Michelle. I'll be like, okay, Michelle, we think we should do this and this. What do you think? And because this is someone who's part-time, they're not always in all the meetings that we have. So sometimes, and we have a communication channel that we use, Slack.
Yep.
And so sometimes I'll be like, we had this meeting and we decided because on this specific task, this is what we decided. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Michelle, on this, just so that it's to make them feel like their views, even though like a team has sat down and made a decision, we still want to hear what her views are, which for me, I feel like at this point, because of the commitments that they have, I think the expertise in specific decisions is a better way to bring them in and still make sure that we're making use of their knowledge and skill.
It's an incredibly diplomatic way to go about how we help people develop and grow. And you made the comment, and you've said this now multiple times, we made the decision. It was not just Margaret who made the decision. It was not just the CEO who made the decision. It was not just the whatever team made the decision. We made this decision. We agreed upon this. And what I invite you to do, Margaret, with this person and with anybody on any team, when we have someone who is not performing fully, bring them into the we. Make them a part of that we. We are glad that your experience is here. It's important to us. How can I help you have stronger communication with us? Is there any additional tools that you need from me? Any additional messages that you need from me? Now it becomes a manager. Now it's a me thing, right? So we work together, but me, as the manager, you represent the team. And you already inherently have that mindset. So when you think about that mindset, you've learned that somewhere along the way. Either it was modeled or it was part of your family structure, but somewhere along the way, you learned how to lead through experience, right? So where do you think that is? Do you agree with that, first off, before I make an assumption?
I have to think about, I feel like I have to think about where exactly like that I can credit learning that from. Is it from like years of school? But I think also I have to also credit, it could be years of school, it could be all the other previous experiences, but for context, I had worked in this same company for 3 years before 3 years and a few months before transitioning into this role. And the work culture in the company has always been very, let me say, positive. And I've had experience, having worked in this team, I've had experiences where, different people communicate differently, and I've been on the receiving end, and some of them I receive a certain way positively, and some of them I receive negatively. And picking up from, how people communicate and how it makes me feel, I think has quite informed how I would also like to lead people and how I want to communicate with people, so that it fosters a positive feeling of, teamwork in the group. Yeah.
Beautiful. So one of your colleagues has asked a really great question that wasn't on our list, and I'm going to ask it because it's a good one.
Yeah.
How do you get your teammates to take you seriously? Especially since you've been promoted from within, and especially since your previous manager sitting right next to you. How do you get them to take you seriously?
I think that's such a difficult question to answer.
It is, right? I want you to lean into, though, that inherently you believe in what you've said so far. Trust that. Trust your gut on that. How do you get them to take you seriously? How did you get them to take you seriously before?
Yeah. To be honest, obviously, even before I became the team lead, I think my work has spoken for itself, my work ethic, my contribution, because a lot of the work when it comes to data science, because it's code, you write code, you push it, it has to go through review by team members. So people always see the type of work that you write. It's not a thing that you write and gets merged into production. There has to be rounds of review by the team members. And so I'm sure they've seen the type of work that I bring, the type of like working style that I've had even previously. And so I think that definitely informs how they take me or how seriously they can take me. But I think also walking the talk, let me say that, because for example, when we say that, one of the things we say is, we have that living document, and these are the tasks that person A, B, and C will be doing. And when we come back, I need to have also done the part of the work that
You
that
need to
I
model the way.
and in case of like, because sometimes you haven't done or you haven't completed because of challenges, and this is normal, you come back and be transparent about it. So the consistency of either that this person is going to come back and they've done the work, or they'll come back and say, okay, I did this, but I got stuck here and these are the challenges. So there's that, just like the previous work ethic that they've already seen me presenting.
Beautiful answer. And that taps into one of the most necessary skill sets a leader of any age, stage, gender, country, orientation has to have. And it has a lot to do with our topic today. When you think about the most important thing you can do for your team, what do you think it is? Starts with an L.
The most important thing I can do for my team, I guess, given the hint of L, I think should be listening.
Yes. Why is that the most important thing and the most valuable gift you can give your team?
Because for them, I guess it comes back to the question that my colleague asked, which is, how do people take me seriously or trust me? If they're going to take me seriously, if they're going to trust that I can lead the team and move the vision forward, then I'll have to listen to them, because this is the team that's actually going to move that vision, right? Like, I'm not going to do the work myself. I'm not going to lift all the workload myself. I need each and every one of that on the team. And as I said initially, this is a small team because it's a team in a startup. So that means I need to listen to each and every person. What are the challenges, for example, that they're facing? What type of work are they interested in as compared to others? What kind of, maybe like if they need, let's say, more one-on-one meetings, if they need less of them, and things like that. Just like listening to what their work styles are, what are the needs, what things are they struggling with, or what are the victories actually that they have. Just listening to those, I think, and validating them.
Absolutely. So that's leading by listening, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about that, leading by listening, you just expressed what you think it means to you. Is there anything else that you would add to that?
I think just to expand a little bit, I would say, let me expand that by maybe giving an example.
Yes, please.
Right. So sometimes maybe someone could say something, for example, like if we say that we have task A, B, and C, and we need task A to be done by this week, and you assign the person, and maybe they say, oh, I'd rather do task B. But then from the leadership position and from, knowing, that task A is the priority. So if you want to disagree with the person, you'd first, I would say something like, okay, I understand that, your task B might be more exciting, or it might be more aligned to the type of things you're excited about doing. But based on the needs of the company at this point, I would prefer that, what I'm trying to say is, like, instead of just saying, no, let's focus on task A, it's validating their wanting to do something different, or having that different opinion, even though, as a leader, you want to enforce the other thing. So ensuring that you validate what they're saying, even though you know you're about to negate it.
That was really well said.
Yeah.
And it taps beautifully into one of the questions that popped up in the Q&A. So we're giving you another little side one, because I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Your nature, your leadership style is inclusive and relatively positive. Would you agree with that?
I would.
So it's probably easier for you to say, good job, thank you, that was amazing, than it is to give that context change, goal change, or constructive feedback, right?
Yeah.
So the question is this, Shalon put in that she's dealing with, or they're dealing with, a supervisor that always gives them positive feedback. So there's no room to change or grow. So when a leader, and you can even tap into your own experience, because you were promoted because of excellence.
Yeah.
Right? So you probably got a lot of good jobs along the way. But in your heart, you knew there was room to grow. So what would you say to someone who's feeling that, either on your team or as someone who's kind of been along that path, that only hears positives?
Yeah. And I mean, I want to, before answering, I even want to go further and say that, like, initially, I used to always wonder, there's another leader who's not my direct supervisor, who was always very positive. Like, when even I know that the thing I did, I'm not even sure what I was doing, they'll always come back with, like, this is really great. And I would question whether this person doesn't think I could do better. And that's why they're always like, any bare minimum thing you do is great for them, because the bar they have for you is quite low.
Yeah.
So you wonder if the bar they have for you is low, and that's why they're always impressed with whatever you're doing. And so now flipping it to answer the question, which is, what would I say to someone feeling like they're always receiving positive feedback, instead of maybe sometimes constructive,
Opportunities to grow.
yeah, opportunities to grow. I think sometimes you can push for it, right? I think you can push for your team lead or your supervisor or manager. And the way to push for it, of course, is not to say, oh, you're always giving me positive feedback. What about negative? I don't think so. But sometimes go in and say, I really struggled with this thing. I wasn't sure if this was the right way to do it. What do you think? I think in that case, if it's the type of person who struggles with giving, I don't want to say negative feedback, but something, let's say, constructive feedback. If it's someone that's struggling with giving constructive feedback, then I think it's giving them the opportunity to actually say more. Like, if you push it from them, like, how can I improve? Or I really struggled with this. I wasn't sure about this, and so forth. I think that would be a way to give the person the opportunity to give the constructive feedback.
You're creating a safe environment for the manager, because
Yeah.
coming back to your scenario, you're managing someone who was just your superior 7 months ago.
Yeah.
You might be in a situation in the future where you're managing in a multi-generational situation where people are older than you or much younger than you. And so when we think about that, your advice is very wise. As an individual contributor, ask for feedback. Help me. My favorite line is, help me understand how I could have done this differently. I'm thinking there might have been a better way. As a manager, my response would be, wow, that's a really interesting approach you took, Margaret. Help me understand the strategy that got you there. I might have gone about it differently. I'd really like to hear how you got there. Now I've set the stage to give you my opinion. Right? Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it all pivots off of listening. So before I pause to our next section, which is going to be a little bit on some of the rules and levels of listening for managers, I want to ask, is there anything else you'd like to share before we get to the Q&A? Because you're going to be a part of the Q&A panel as well. What did I miss asking you?
Yes. I guess let me say, like, kind of the final thing that I want to say here is when you're, I think based off of my experience, which is being approached with an opportunity to lead, I think almost always you should say yes, because even when you feel like, because there's always going to be that voice that says, do I even know what I'm doing? And for me, it was especially when I was dealing with external customers, because I felt like I could afford to make a mistake within the company. But when it comes to representing the company with external partners, it really just felt like the bar was quite high. I can't afford to make mistakes. Do I know what I was doing? But I think there's something that Michelle, you've said that I think really, really helps, which is trust in your gut. Like, these people have trusted you. You should
Yeah.
trust that you're able to make those decisions. And of course, be, as always, like, put in the work, ask for help in those situations, and just ensure that you're communicating clearly and saying, sometimes you find that you're stuck, like you're with external partners and they ask a question. And there are certain ways I've learned to navigate, which is like, if I'm not sure, I'll say, I think I'd need to consult with my team internally and get back to you. And that's an acceptable answer, because you don't always have to know everything about the company that you work for, because at that point you might feel like, I'm representing the company, I need to know everything about the company, but that's not always true. So just
No.
trust yourself even if you don't know.
Yeah, that's
everything.
absolutely the wisest. It comes back to listening. You have to listen to yourself, listen to your gut, trust your gut, and know that you are qualified enough for somebody to raise their hand and say, hey, how am I doing? And then also ask that question along the way. And when we ask that question along the way, we create a scenario that we open the door for feedback. And one of the other questions was, how do I handle multi-generational, multicultural? None of it is different. We're all humans. We all wake up every day wanting to do a good job. And some of us know how to do a good job. Some of us are learning how to do a good job. And some of us haven't discovered our true gifting yet. And so it's just opening your heart to really listen and listen well. So don't run away, because I want to tap into a little bit of the skills that you just talked about and be able to then bring us all back together to do a quick Q&A and really think through how that balance of head and heart comes into play. Are you all right?
All
Okay.
right.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to pivot a bit. Elizabeth, I will lose access to the chat. So I'm going to just ask everyone be a little patient with me as I run through where we're at. And then if you could just capture the questions along the way, that would be awesome. And please feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. If it's a specific question, if it's a comment, go ahead and drop it into chat. But what we heard so beautifully articulated from Margaret is this idea that she utilized the basic skill sets of management by being kind of tossed into that role of managing. And what we discovered when we had the primary interview with her was it was really because she was focusing on listening, not only to what her CEO want, not only to what the business wanted, but really to what her team needed and what she understood from them. The basic toolbox for every manager starts with self-awareness. You must know who you are. You must then understand how you lean into listening so that you can do what is happening organically for Margaret. And also, she's learning some new skills in order to be able to do this. How can she model the behavior for her team in order to ensure they all succeed together? And it really comes down to the basics of emotional intelligence. How do you balance your head and your heart? How do you lean into your toolbox, all of the information that you've learned along the way? And when we take the time to truly listen to what our head and heart is saying, we can hear more clearly what others are communicating to us. One of the biggest mistakes managers make is that they assume they understand the spectrum of communication, the spectrum of listening. And when you think about how you communicate to get things done, we all fall on the spectrum somewhere. Some of us, myself, I'm very much a social communicator. I talk out loud, I share out loud, I process out loud. And so someone who's managing me has to navigate the where do I interject in order to give Michelle feedback. Margaret's right in the middle. She actually is a little reserved. She listens first, then shares. I know that some of you are on this call who are very reserved. You listen, go home and think about it, take some time to process it, and come back and discuss it. Your team needs to know what type of communicator you are. So if you're very social, invite them in to say, hey, I want to share something with you, and I'd like to tell me what you hear. If you're very reserved, say, hey, I'm going to ask you a question. I'd like to hear your perspective, but understand I may need a little time to think it through. And so as a new manager, this is really a cool way to navigate that multi-generational component, as well as the being promoted from within a team. Think about what type of communicator you are. But I also want you to think about some of the other critical components you heard. So take a second if you want and chat and really think about what is needed to manage well and that is critical to lead well. Some of you are in scholars roles. You haven't necessarily landed the first job. You haven't necessarily gone into a managerial role. You're still leading. You're still in a position of leadership, but what do you also want from your leaders? Do you want them to be strong listeners? Do you want them to be clear communicators? Do you want them to show empathy? What types of thing do you think is critical that a manager should be doing well? Now, personally, over my 30 odd years plus of leading, managing, and navigating teams, I really have had to learn this. It is critical that before I speak, I listen. And listening has a lot more to do than just the silence that's in between the words. Listening has a lot to do with where we are at the time. There are 4 types of listening. You will experience these types of listenings multiple times throughout the day, but it's important to think about where you naturally rest. The first type of listening is you're just sitting at the table. You're just sitting at your desk. You're just sitting in a room. You're really not paying any attention, but you're present. All of a sudden, somebody says something that you want to contribute to. This sometimes is called distracted listening. I'm a natural level 2 listener. I hear something, I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to share. But when I do that and I interrupt the conversation, I lose the opportunity to move into problem solving because I've spoke before I heard all of the issues. Most people in technical roles, this is their natural habitat. This is where they live. But this is also a dangerous place to start speaking right away because you then miss the ability to connect. And that's what Margaret shared with us. Margaret shared with us that she heard her CEO say, the responsibilities of the organization are on you. You need to step up and do what you need to do. I want to make sure the team succeeds. She's listened to her team. She's providing information and she's doing it on a connected level. So it's not just problem solving. It's not just, ooh, Margaret's the greatest manager on the planet, therefore she can tell everybody about that. And she's not just sitting in the room waiting to be spoken to. She's really connecting with her team. She's connecting with her leadership, and she's working on connecting with her previous manager who's now a part of her team. In order to do this well, we have to think about a few rules of engagement. And these rules are really about being a decent human being. Some of you are going to see the things on this list and say, well, that's silly, Michelle. I do that every day. Assume positive intent. People don't wake up wanting to be mean and nasty. It happens through triggers of the day. So assume when someone asks you something, even if it kind of hurts you or catches you off guard, assume they're asking because they have a reason. When we can make that assumption of positive intent, we can move into being present with that person and learn what they're actually asking. Then we can truly connect with them. We do not have to agree with their opinion, but we must respect the fact that they were open and honest enough to share it. And that's tricky because you have to welcome that honesty as well as be honest. And comes back to, why am I always receiving positive feedback? I must need some more room to grow. Open that door and say, hey, I want to learn. Hey, I want to grow. Hey, I need to be honest with you. I can't be this amazing all the time. Or I need to be honest with you. I can't be this horrible all the time. Help me see some things that can help me grow. And what that does is it makes space for those new ideas. It creates synergy in creating a room for all of us to transform and grow. And the way to do that is to simply, if you take anything away from my conversation, it's the 3 R's. You're going to receive information, observe it and assess it. Give it at least a minute before you respond. If it's an email, give it sometimes 24 hours before you respond. Really reflect on that response because you don't want to react. A good response comes from listening and thinking about action that can be taken. And when we lean into that action that can be taken, we can truly succeed. So that was super fast. You're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me on WhatsApp. We'll have this information that'll come out for you folks afterwards. But what I want you to really think about in the midst of this is, how can you change the face of business around the globe? How can you do that? How can you create the change you'd like to see? My thought on it is, it's done through listening. And that's from someone who talks a lot for a living. All right. So what we're going to do now is open up the panel for Q&A. And Angela or Elizabeth, you're going to navigate that? How are we going to go about this? Because we have 10 minutes left to open up the Q&A.
Awesome.
My big question for the group in the chat is, what did you hear? What did you hear from Margaret? What did you hear from me?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have Ibrahim who's going to come in and ask a question.
Beautiful.
So I'm going to unmute him and he can start us off with the Q&A in the next 10 minutes. And Margaret has to leave at the top of the hour, so we're going to keep it as quick as possible. All right, Ibrahim. You should be able to unmute yourself right now.
Yes, hi Michelle, hi Margaret. It's really great. I mean, I'm ready now to be a manager. I was like, whew. But the insights are really great. Maybe let me begin a question to Michelle. You talked about documenting, and recently I really had a friend talk about documenting in workplaces. Can you please elaborate more about the use of documenting and how it can be tactfully used to push, let's say, for a promotion, especially in hierarchical places? And to Margaret, maybe this has also been touched about by one of the questions, but I would love to you to elaborate, like being a woman, a young woman in my managerial position really might add other threats, especially if the boss you could have replaced is an older man or woman. How best do you think we can deal with old folks who are rigid to change and still consider you like a child to work and, to meet your set goals? And yeah, maybe just to top it off, I would say that also being a manager can be hard because you have to be accountable on behalf of your whole team. Is there other skills apart from listening and live lessons you would advise us in a workplace maybe to be an effective manager?
So you asked a tremendous amount of beautiful questions that are an entire course in themselves. I just want to clarify, in the amount of time we have, we can't get to all of those today. But what I do think is critical is, please make sure that you note them or get them to Angela, because I'd love to be able to create some sort of work form for you all that we can address some of these things. The biggest reason why I put listening as the priority of a skill set is that it assists me in my level of documentation. documentation, as whether you are a student, whether you are an employee, whether you are a family member, a spouse, whatever, it is important that you take a minute to think about, what did I just hear? Because sometimes our emotions, that's why I talk about balancing your head and heart, documentation helps with that by taking a minute. And that's why I asked Margaret if they had a shared document. Whatever your organization has, make sure it's a shared document so that both people can go back and say, well, Margaret, I actually heard something a little different than what you wrote. And then that way you can have that open dialogue. Documentation as a young manager, a new manager, and especially in a multi-generational situation where you're managing people who are older than you or from different cultures. I've managed people from India to Vancouver. So it's super important that you create a shared track of information. You can do that through setting an agenda at the beginning of a meeting, putting the notes in the agenda, and then being able to send those notes out to your team or to the person and say, here, can we have agreement that this is what we decided on and this is what we discussed? Good news is a lot of tools out there. AI can help with that, especially if you're doing a Teams meeting, a Zoom meeting, or a Cisco WebEx type of meeting. There's a lot of really great tools that'll capture that transcript for you so you don't have to write down everything. But I think that the questions you asked are brilliant. The importance of documentation is it helps show where you've succeeded, where you need to grow, and how you can partner. But the biggest benefit to it as a manager and as someone who is being managed by someone difficult, it is protection for you to be able to say, this is what I heard. Is that accurate? Margaret, would you add to that? Because I do want to make sure we get time.
Ibrahim asked about being a woman in a managerial position. But before I talk about being a woman, let me just quickly add to the documentation. It also shows that you're organized, which is a quality that's admirable for a leader. So being a woman in the workplace, I'm going to say that fortunately in my workplace, I haven't felt like being a woman is something to even talk about as an employee. I don't feel like it has given me any upper hand or lower hand, or I've not felt discriminated or things like those. However, I think those experiences have shown up when I'm dealing with external partners, but not within the organization. I don't know if that's something that I should expand on, maybe. No.
That's the way it should be. You are there on your merit. You got promoted because you were great at your job and you were the right person for the role at the right time.
Yeah.
It's absolutely the way it should be. I don't ever want a promotion just because I'm a woman, but I've been, as a 50-year-old white woman, I've been in positions with a lot of people that I've watched get discriminated and have been discriminated against. So when that happens, it's important to partner with someone in your organization to say, hey, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not sure how I'm being represented here. But Margaret, in your case, you got promoted because you were good at your job. Congratulations. And as a woman, you get to represent. And as a woman of color, you get to thrive. And I want you to just be as shiny and bright as you can, because you've got a beautiful future in front of you.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's like, now that we're talking about those types of things, I think it should be important to mention the context of where I work, which is that, as I mentioned earlier, people in my workplace come from different parts of the of the world. And so that means it's also a multiracial workplace. I think that context should also be important to mention.
It's very important. It's very important because when it's very homogeneous, is that the right word? When it is that, you lose a lot of diversity of thought and ideas. All of my teams have been multi-generational, multi-racial, and of a variety of just different thought patterns. I'm also dyslexic, so that adds another component to it as well. So it's just bring the best people to the table, and if they're not the most amazing, help them grow. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. Angela, do we have time for one more? What's your thought?
We can take one more question. I think there's already a number of them in the Q&A. We can take one, and I will compile the rest of the questions that people have asked and send them over to you. You can respond, and then I'll share back to the group.
Sounds good. I would love to hear live from one of the folks that has their hand up too. So what's your thought there, Angela? Because you kind of had a better view of the questions versus me trying to pull a question out of the pile.
They're going to take time. And I'm afraid Margaret is going to leave.
Yes.
So
Okay.
I'm going to leave by the hour.
No worries. Elizabeth, what are your thoughts? How do you want to go about this?
I
you?
think,
Or do
hold on.
you know either of the people who have their hands up?
Some have been answered. I think Shalon's question we answered. I think Suad's question we answered in the course of it.
Okay. Can we ask Namaquila to come off mute and see what the question is? And again, being openly dyslexic, I may be pronouncing your name wrong. Either one of the folks that have their hands up, Angela.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you,
You're very welcome.
Margaret. Yeah, like you asked what we learned from your talk, and personally, I learned to listen to myself, though at times I found this challenge in that fine, I listen to myself to some extent, but then my outcome, oftentimes people look at it as the weakest points, and then they end up judging me because of my weakness. And oftentimes they do not appreciate, they do not approve me, rather they just look at the mistakes. And then somehow I feel offended. So how do I get out of that zone? How do I handle such people?
That is a beautiful question. And the best way to do that is to start to practice improving your emotional intelligence. I will be, when we send out the notes, I'm going to send a phenomenal book. It's called Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradbury. It has got 34 strategies in that to help you understand how you balance your head and heart. If you have great ideas and other people can't hear it, it's probably you're not communicating to them in a way that they can listen. So it's learning how to navigate what you say and how other people hear it. The most important part, though, and the hardest part of it is don't take offense. As soon as we take offense, we are assuming that we are wrong and the other person is right, or we are right and the other person is radically wrong. Really ask yourself, assume a positive intent, and then be present to learn. Why are they asking me that? How can I communicate back to them with respect so that we can connect? Because I feel unheard, because it happens. We feel unheard. And within that, how do we become honest with each other and welcome that honesty back? And it's through developing your emotional intelligence. A lot of technical people say, I don't need emotions at work. The truth of the matter is that we are all humans. We all rotate on this planet together simultaneously, and we all feel. Do not ever be ashamed of that. But learn how to communicate it with strength and courage, not fear and aggression. It is important.
And I think on that note, I think Margaret needs to go. I just want to thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you so much, Michelle. We will take note of your questions and get back to you for the questions. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation and your feedback. We will see you all next month for our next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
Beyond the skies, you and I, we're breaking bounds on Baobab.